Day 1, Introduction to Python and Development Setup. Let's jump into overview of Python and its role in AI. Now, why Python for AI? Python has become the go-to language for AI due to its simplicity, readability, extensive libraries, and supportive community. Libraries like NumPy, Pandas, TensorFlow, PyTorch, and scikit-learn make Python ideal for machine learning and data analysis. Now let's look at some of the applications of Python in AI. Python is widely used in various AI applications such as machine learning. Libraries like scikit-learn enable building and deploying ML models. We have deep learning, where we have TensorFlow and PyTorch, which power neural networks and deep learning architectures. In data science and analytics, libraries like Pandas and Matplotlib allow data manipulation and visualization. We also have natural language processing or NLP. We have NLTK, Spacy, and transformers, which are the key for language related tasks, and automation and scripting. Python's simplicity and flexibility make it perfect for automating repetitive tasks. Next, let's jump into installing Python and setting up a coding environment. Here, first, we'll be installing Python. We'll be visiting python.org and download the latest version of Python for Mac. And then we're going to do the similar thing in Windows. We're going to ensure that you check your options to add Python to path during installation if you don't have it. But in my case, I will have directly set up available. But if you have any issues, let me know. And then we're going to go to setting up a coding environment. We'll install Jupyter Notebooks, which is a popular tool for interactive coding, ideal for data exploration and visualization. We'll be installing that by running pip install Jupyter in the terminal. Now we're going to do that in Mac, but on Windows, it's the exact same command. And then we will start the Jupyter Notebook by running the Jupyter Notebook in the terminal to open the notebook interface. Next, we're going to go ahead and install Visual Studio Code. We'll be downloading it and installing this from code.visualstudio.com. And then we're going to install some Python extension, which in VS Code is used for syntax highlighting, autocomplete, and debugging. We'll be doing configuration of Python interpreter, where we set the interpreter to the installed Python version for easy script execution. So let's go ahead and install Python and set up our coding environment. So first step is to install Python. So I'm going to go here into python.org, go into downloads, and in here I can download Python 3.13.0. If you want to download Python for Windows, you go here and you download. But there's another way that I'm going to walk you over. So I'm going to, for Mac, I'll go ahead and download Python. It's going to take a few minutes. So I'm going to go to Visual Studio Code, which is code.visualstudio.com, and download my Visual Studio from here. You can do the same thing for Windows and download for Windows. And now it's downloading my Visual Studio. I can open my downloads folder, and as you can see, Python is already downloaded. So I'm going to click on that and walk through this process. Continue, continue, agree, install, put my password in. And it's going to take some time. At the same time, I'm also going to run Visual Studio. And it installed my Visual Studio here. I'm going to bring that and put it on my dock and open Visual Studio Code. And say open, close all these tabs that are open. And first, let's go ahead and see our Python installation. And it says Python 3.13 for Mac OS or later was successfully installed. I'm going to close this and move this installer to trash. Now to check if I have my Python installed, I'm going to open my terminal and say Python, and it should give me an option to write Python script. I'm going to say print hello world. and it prints it out. So that's perfect. So that means I have Python installed. I'm going to do the same step now in Windows. So in Windows, first I'm going to click on the Windows icon and then open command prompt by pressing CMD. Here I'm going to check for Python. If Python is not installed, it's going to take me to Microsoft Store and it will give me an option to download Python here. So I'm going to go ahead and press download, and it's downloading right now. It's not going to take much time to download Python in Windows directly from here. So I'm going to give it a few seconds. This is almost done and installed. So I have it downloaded. I'm going to press launch, and this will launch another terminal, uh, which I will open here, and you see my Python prompt is available here. I can type print hello world, something that I did in Mac, similar to that, and it will print out hello world for me. I can do the same thing in my other terminal where I can write Python and it will give me the Python prompt. So if you're opening something new, you can directly use the Python prompt from your command prompt, and it will let you type your Python code. So I'm going to type quit, or it's actually quit with brackets. I'm going to do that, and you can quit out of Python. Now that we have installed in our Mac and Windows Python, so next step is to get the Jupyter Notebooks, which is a popular tool for interactive coding, ideal for data exploration and visualization. So I'm going to say pip install Jupyter, and it's the same command for Windows too if you're installing on Windows. It's going to take a couple of seconds or minutes, and once it's done, it's going to tell me that it's installed all the packages. So I'm going to give it a couple of seconds. And there you go, it's installed. So now I'm going to clear this out and say Jupyter Notebook. And it's going to run my Jupyter Notebook right here on my browser. And here I can go and create a new notebook here. I'm going to say Python 3. And here is my Jupyter Notebook. I can just say print hello world and run it, and you'll see hello world being printed. I can fix this by saying this and run it again, and it will print it out. So I have my Jupyter Notebook installed. If you had any issues or problems, let me know. Now let's go back to our Visual Studio editor. So we have our Visual Studio editor installed. First thing that you would want to see is go into extensions and look for Python. So I can just say Python, and it will show me my Python, and it says this is already been installed, but you need to restart this extension. So I'm going to restart this. If you're first time coming here, you'll probably see an install option, and just install it from there, and you will have this plugin added to your Visual Studio Code. Next thing that we want to do is set the interpreter to the installed Python version for easy script execution. So for that, I'll make sure my Python extension pack is also installed. And once that is done, you have your Python installed, and you've also set up your coding environment. You can start with running our first projects, which we'll cover in a short while. Introduction to basic Python syntax, variables, and data types. Here, we will look at some of the basic syntax, like how to use comments, where we will be using a hash or a pound key for single line comments and triple quotes for multi-line comments. We'll be looking at indentation. Python uses indentation to define code blocks, unlike other languages that uses braces. Also, we'll look at variables. Variables are dynamically typed, so there's no need to declare types explicitly. We'll look at variables which are defined by assigning values. Example, we'll create a simple variable and assign it some values. And then we'll look at different types of data types. We have integers, which are whole numbers like 1, 42, -3. We have float, which is decimal numbers like 3.14, 2.7. It can be negative, like -1.5. We have strings, which is text enclosed in single or double quotes. And then we're going to talk about lists, which are ordered mutable collection of items. Example, you can have inside square bracket 1, 2, and 3. You can also have strings inside it. Then we're going to look at tuples, which are ordered immutable collections, which we'll look in our examples, how they are different from list. Then we're going to look at dictionaries, which are key value pairs. And then finally, we'll look at some booleans, which are true or false values used in logical operations. So let's go ahead and look at examples of using variables and data types in our code. I have my Visual Studio Code editor available. I'm going to go ahead and say new file. Here we are going to look at different Python variables and data types. So I'm going to say I want to select a Python file. So I have my Python file created. Here first, let's look at integers and floats. Now my font is very small. I'm going to increase it just so it's much more clear. So integers and floats. Now if I want to create an integer, I'm going to create an integer age and give it a value 25. I want to give height as 5.9. Now first one is an integer because it's a whole number, and the second one, height, is a float because it is a decimal point number. Next we looked at strings. So let's say strings. For strings, what I'm going to do is I am going to use a variable called as name and provide it Alice. Now every time you provide something inside double quotes, that's what creates a string out of it. I can also create a concatenation string variable. I can say greeting equal to hello and pass that previous variable from above here saying hello name. That's how you can create strings with concatenating each other. So this will greeting variable will have hello Alice in there. Next, let's look at list and tuple. So I'm going to create list and tuple here. Numbers variable which will have 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the four numbers that I'm going to put inside this particular list. So this is how you define a list. Now this can be numbers and it can also be names array where you can have Alice and Jack inside it, something like this. Now let's look at tuples. So for that I'm going to create a variable called as coordinates, and to this I will use the rounded bracket and say 10 comma 20. So this is the tuple which has two values inside it with inside rounded bracket. So that's how we can say it's a tuple. Now let's create a dictionary, which is I mentioned is a key value pair. So dictionary looks something like this, where I say persons equal to where name is Alice and age is 25. So here I'm saying there's a person whose name is Alice key and this is value, and next key is age and the value is 25. And finally, let's look at booleans. Is underscore student equal to true. So this is how you can create booleans. We can give true or false. These are the different values that boolean variables can have, and we'll be using all these quite a lot in our projects. So let's jump into the next topic, which is hands-on exercises. Next is our hands-on exercise. For our first exercise, we'll be writing a Python script to print a message. So let's get started. So our objective here is to create a simple script that outputs text. So first, I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code. You can do this in Jupyter Notebook too, but I would use this for now. Create a Python file. I'm going to create a folder on my desktop, call it AI Bootcamp, and I'm going to save it inside here. So I'm going to save this. I'll say, where do I want to save? Desktop. Inside my AI Bootcamp, I am going to call it day 1 exercise 1, and here I'll write the code print hello comma AI world. That's about it. So now I'm going to run the script. To run the script, I'm going to open my terminal or command prompt depending on which machine you are, and you can just go to desktop, in my case wherever the file is saved, which is AI Bootcamp, and I see this file here. I'm going to say Python day 1 underscore exercise py. That's what runs the code, and it says hello AI world. Whatever I've written here will be displayed here. So if you got this working, great. If not, let me know. So now that you've completed exercise 1, let's jump into exercise 2, where we will practice creating and manipulating variables of different data types. The objective for our exercise 2 is getting comfortable with variables, data types, and operations in Python. So first, here what we'll do is we'll define variables for an integer, float, string, list, tuple, dictionary, and boolean. So everything that we learned. We'll experiment with basic operations such as concatenating strings. We'll look at adding items to list and accessing dictionary values. So for that, I am going to create another file, Python file. I'm going to save it as day1 exercise2.py. And here, first I will define variables of different data types. So whatever we picked up today. So I'm going to say integer underscore variable. That's the name that I'm giving it. And I'm going to assign it value 10. Okay, there you go. Next, I'm going to say float variable. I'm going to give it value 3.14. Next, I'm going to say string underscore var. And for that, I am going to call it AI. Next, I'll have a list, which is list underscore variable. And here, I'm going to put values 1, 2, and 3. Next, I'll create a tuple underscore var. And to it, I'll put values 4, 5, and 6. Next, dictionary variable. I am going to call it, inside this, I'll have a person with name of Alice, and role of this person is an engineer. And then I'm going to create a boolean variable and set it initially to true. Next, now let's print and manipulate the variables. So I am going to say print and manipulate variables. So first step is printing our integer variable. So I'm going to say integer comma pass integer variable. So this will print my integer variable. Next, I'm going to say print float comma float variable. Next, I am going to say print. This time I want to display string. So I'm going to say oops string, and to this string I'll say string variable. Also, I am going to say add bootcamp at the end of it. So I am concatenating here. So it will say whatever the value of string is, which is AI, and then bootcamp at the end of it. Next, I have my list. So to the list variable, I want to add one more item to it before I even print it. So I'm going to say append and add the item 4. So we have 1, 2, 3 in the list, and I want to append another object here called as 4, the number 4. Now if I print this and I call it list comma list variable, and see what it displays outside. Next, I want to display the display the tuple. So I'm going to say tuple comma tuple variable. Next, we have dictionary. So I am going to say print dictionary value, and here I'm going to say dictionary variable. Now I don't want everything inside it. I just want to display the name. So I can just specify the key. If I don't do specify this, it will show me the entire dictionary, but I just want to see the name, so I can do that. Next, I'm going to say print me boolean. To this, I am going to say bool variable. So let's go ahead and run it on our command prompt here. So I am in the folder. I want to run this one. So I'm going to say Python day1 underscore exercise2.py, and as you can see, it will display me integer 10, float 3.14, print string AI, and then I concatenated bootcamp, and that's why it's there. My list, which was 1, 2, 3, got appended by 4. That's why I see 4 items here. My tuple has 4, 5, 6. My dictionary value, which is I was specified for name, and it gave me only Alice. If I say role here, it will give me the role as engineer. Similarly, boolean, I displayed it out as true. So if you have this same output, that's great. If not, let me know. So just to summarize, on day one, we set up our development environment, we understood Python's role in AI, and gained familiarity with basic Python syntax, variables, and data types. The hands on exercise helped us apply what we have learned, setting a strong foundation for upcoming modules. Whatever we did today prepared us with practical coding skills as well as fundamental understanding of Python and AI development. Let me know if you had any issues or questions, and I'll address them promptly.